Hello and welcome to Season 11, Episode 3 of the Ubuntu Podcast. It's Tuesday, the 20th of March, and we're going to discuss what's been happening in the news and community. I'm Mark, and joining me this week, Alan's back.
Hello.
But Martin is swanning off, jet-setting around again.
He's currently somewhere over Canada.
Are you tracking him?
I am tracking him. I feel
back?
this sense of loss, so I have to keep an eye on flight aware of his flight. So just to make sure. And he does have internet access on the plane. But
oh dear, is he going to join us in Mumble?
I do hope not, because I suspect the audio will be terrible. But yes.
Oh,
hello.
Right. So in Martin's absence, we are joined by Michael Tunnell. Hello, Michael.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
So, Michael, tell us a bit about yourself. Where else on the internet might people know you from?
I create my own podcast of This Week in Linux at tuxdigital.com, and I also do things with like producing shows for Jupiter Broadcasting, and I write articles for howtogeek.com and some other things like that.
Cool. So, are you a writer professionally, or is this just a hobby for you?
No, it's just hobby stuff. But professionally, I'm a marketer and designer.
Oh, cool.
And the more important task that you've done recently is teach my son how to play Rocket League.
I have definitely done that. He's actually pretty good.
Yeah. Well, he can thrash me, and that's. I mean, obviously, I'm terrible, but yeah, it's cool. It's quite bizarre how these worlds collide. That he plays online on chats to people who are other Linux users, yet he's running Windows on his PC. I overheard him just now chatting to someone while they were playing Rocket League, and one of them was obviously having audio troubles, and Sam said something like, "Oh, is Pulse Audio playing up again?" He has no idea what Pulse Audio is, but just knows
that just something he heard you say.
He's heard one of them complain about Pulse Audio at some point. Someone's shouted, probably one of the Germans in the channel, shouting loudly about how terrible Pulse Audio is. So
I see.
That's all I know.
Right, let's get on with the show then. And now it's time for some news. So, Michael, your story is first in the news this week. So, what's going on?
So, LG announced that the WebOS operating system is going to be made open source. And they're going to have like is from the Palm Pre, is that right? Back in the day? Yeah, back in the day, the Palm company made the WebOS operating system. It's a Linux-based operating system that is like web tech oriented, and it has it's actually been one of my favorite operating systems, like especially mobile operating systems, for a long time. I actually own a Palm, still have my Palm Pre from back in the day. Wow. And I play with it every once in a while, but it's the hardware was not the best. The software was fantastic, but their hardware was lacking. We'll just say it's lacking.
Was it just low end hardware that just didn't? It
was low end hardware that it wasn't powerful, but it's more importantly their battery management was awful, so that the battery would die incredibly quickly. At one point, it started dying within like 5 minutes. Of being 100%.
You're saying that web technologies turned out to eat batteries. Who would have thought it?
It could also be just the hardware itself. It wasn't. They didn't put a lot of effort into the hardware. It seemed like they put more the design of the hardware rather than the functionality of it.
It's funny that the Palm WebOS devices seem to be the kind of things that people who really love them, and like wanted to keep hold of them. There was wasn't there an HP tablet that was also running?
There was, yeah.
There was. The weird thing about the tablet is that if you wanted that tablet, they announced it, and then within like 2 months, they decided to kill it completely. And then they put it in like this super massive sale that you had like 3 hours to get it. Otherwise, you'd never get it.
Oh, there was a giant fire sale, wasn't there?
Yeah. It was like a massive rush with everyone like jamming up the phones of everywhere that sold them.
And they knocked it down to like $80 or something per.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like and it's still a really good tablet too.
Yeah.
So this started out with Palm, and then HP acquired it, and then they sold it to LG, or
Correct.
Did it go to someone else first, or
no? They went to Palm, HP, then to LG, and LG took it in 2013 and converted it into like a TV type interface.
Wow.
Right.
It's weird because only last week I was in the supermarket, and someone, you know what supermarkets are like, you can buy anything in them now. And there was a guy walking along with a giant cardboard box. He'd bought an LG TV. And I just glanced out the corner of my eye. I saw it said WebOS on the box. And I just thought, I got flashbacks to WebOS. And I thought, wow, that's still a thing. I had no idea that you know, there were people actually still using that. I thought it was a one-off that they'd used on a TV for a bit, but it never went anywhere, like Firefox OS.
No, it was their main thing.
Wow.
That's the main interface that LG has been using for years. So 2013 is when they bought it. I think 2014 was the first TV that had it. And they just can, and it's actually really nice if you ever try it. The version on the TV is actually like one of the only smart interfaces or smart TV interfaces that are actually good.
Well, I mean, that's not particularly high bar.
That's true.
all smart TVs are garbage. All of them. I've yet to see a single smart TV that wasn't slow, unresponsive, didn't get updates, smacked you in the face and told you there's an over-the-air update, you know, and just horrible. And, you know, I have a Sony smart TV and it's just awful. I hate using the smart functions.
That's good. That's true. It's a low bar, but it's still impressive that at least someone's trying to do it, and they're doing it with something that is as good as WebOS, because they basically reimagined WebOS to do this.
So the main story
bringing
is
it back out.
It's open source, right? Is it like up on GitHub somewhere and people can contribute to it? Wow.
They put it on GitHub. I think they actually have the most of it at. They have a website made WebOS OSE. So. Yeah,
right.
But it's the WebOS Open Source Edition.
These South Koreans are good with their URLs, aren't they?
Yeah, and it's actually on GitHub as well, so you can get the license and all the information is on GitHub. But the WebOS OSE website is like, you know, the documentation about everything.
Did they talk about what the goal of this was, or why, you know, what they were hoping? Would people port it to other TVs, or?
They're actually talking about like expanding it out to more like bigger, broader approach to different technologies. So it's not just about TVs, it's about pretty much anything, because they said that it has, because the infrastructure of the web has become more important, like apps for phones have kind of fallen back a little bit, and web apps are becoming bigger and bigger and more popular. Mm-hmm. It's like they're saying that WebOS is in a situation where it has even more potential than it did before. So
the Palm version of WebOS was ahead of its time, basically.
Yeah, I mean they also had a lot of great ideas in WebOS. The Palm did, and they announced them before releasing the software, and Android copied them pretty quickly.
Yeah, I remember some of the gestures that used to get in WebOS to like swipe away applications is exactly the way you swipe away applications. I mean, obviously, the
card system didn't exist in Android until Palm invented it, and then Android took it.
Huh. Yeah.
So WebOS was like way before its time, and unfortunately, it wasn't handled very well. But maybe this new open source initiative will provide that. Who knows?
Let's hope so.
I would be happy to see that come back.
Well, given phones like nowadays are way more powerful, can you run it on top of like an Android base, or does it need Helium, or can you run it on?
It's its own thing. It's right. It might, depending on the baseband, that might be an issue, but for the most part, it would work on any kind of ARM device as long as it's like a ROM is built for it.
Right. But so it's gonna need a sort of a XDA developers type community to build around porting it to actual devices.
Right.
Yeah, that's possible. Like the weird thing is that there's also an open WebOS already, and it's been around for a couple of years, and it was kind of like a fork of something, and then there was another fork of that, which is like Loon OS or something like that. And so it's there was some weird licensing issues that's been like, because it's changed companies so many times.
Yeah.
There's like who owns what type of thing is really odd. But at this point, since LG is the larger entity that owns the most, because they're open sourcing it, it's more of this is a bigger change than the previous versions.
Yeah.
Well, I hope all these interested parties can work together on it.
That would be fantastic.
So what's the next news story, Alan?
Oh gosh, well, this is a fast-moving story.
It's already changed several times since you put it in the show notes.
Yes, it has. So
where to begin?
Cambridge Analytica, a company that specialize in doing data marketing, who take large sets of data and create micro-targeted content to change audience behavior. That's the shtick of what they do, which is basically they do data mining, try and figure out what people's voting patterns or preferences are, and try and coerce them to vote differently or buy differently, basically. So other companies will employ Cambridge Analytica's services in order to coerce people on social media to do something different for their benefit. And it turns out that a guy called Dr. Alexander Kogan back in 2015 made an app, a survey app for Facebook. And about 270,000 people used it. And when they used it, they hit the button in Facebook that says, give this app all my data, which he said would be for research purposes. So he captured all this data about all the people in the survey and all their friends, which obviously the social graph is very large with 270,000 people. That expands out further to all their friends. So it's a very large number of people. But that data made its way to Cambridge Analytica, where their CEO, Alexander Nix, was using that data potentially to coerce people to do things like vote for Donald Trump or vote for Brexit. That's the allegation. So,
and when you say the data made its way, the implication here is that it wasn't being given with the consent that it would be used in this way.
Well, so the original users who press the button that says, yes, I give this data, and Facebook say, you may use our APIs to get this data for research purposes, because that's what the Kogan guy said that was for. So yes, this potentially is a breach. And so Facebook are claiming that Cambridge Analytica, in inverted commas, stole the data. But this data had already left Facebook some time before, a couple of years previously. So this has all been rumbling on for a couple of years in the background. And then suddenly a whistleblower from Cambridge Analytica called Christopher Wiley was interviewed by a number of press outlets and blew the whistle on what had been happening at, let's call them CA. Not related to CA, the big company, Computer Associates in America, but CA.
Or Creative Assembly.
Or all the other things that are CA. All right, I won't call them CA. But yeah, their ultimate goal was to gather this data and influence people. And it's the story has developed slightly while we're recording this. The CEO has been suspended, I think.
Yeah. And this is at the same time as this was going on, Channel 4 did an undercover investigation and got them on tape offering to do some nefarious things for a client, or perhaps not offering to do some nefarious things to a client if you believe the statement they put out directly afterwards.
Right. Yeah. It's all pretty nasty. And the problem is with all of these, like, I'm going to invoke the phrase post-Snowden era, we just know this stuff's going on. You just know it's happening. Like, this is not a surprise. I mean, it's shocking. It's terrible. But
the shocking thing to me mainly is the fact that this was built into Facebook. The whole tracking the data from your friends was not a part of the app's algorithm. It was a part of Facebook's permission system.
Right. They could just attach a Hoover to the Facebook API and just suck, all that data out, so long as someone was... Yeah. I mean, the problem is, like, the level of people that you've got using Facebook ranges from people with, 180 IQ down to 80 IQ and probably below. And so there's a wide spectrum of people. You can't just say these people were stupid to press the button and grant access, because these are computers and users get smacked in the face with dialog boxes and permission things, and they just press OK because they want to get to the end goal. So I know some people have been blaming the users for allowing their data. Oh, well, you're daft for letting this app have access to your data. But it's a pattern that unfortunately happens in computers all the time. You get a pop-up coming up telling you need to do updates, and then a nefarious pop-up comes up that tells you need to do, in inverted commas, updates, and it's actually something nefarious. And how is a normal user ever going to know the difference between these things? And the fact that they've given all that data to Facebook means it's just one click away from all going down a pipe to some nefarious person who claims what they're doing is for the good of man.
And another thing that I think a lot of people, maybe not so much, us, but people who are more, the wider population outside of people who listen to Linux podcasts.
That's a very small demographic, but I'm sure.
Might not think about so much is that you're also you're sort of being asked to give permission for the use of your contact data as well. It's like when you install an app on your phone and you say, yes, it can access my contacts. You're saying, yes, it can display the contacts in the app, but it also might be hoovering data about everyone you've contacted through your phone and doing stuff with that. And you're not asking them permission when you say okay.
Right. And I've certainly seen evidence of people, like very recent, in the last 24, 48 hours, I've seen people disappear off Facebook. I've seen people accelerate their thought process of, well, I was going to get rid of this anyway, and they've like deleted their account or deactivated their account. Or
there's a massive thing on Twitter as well with the hashtag delete Facebook.
Oh, really? And
but not Twitter.
Well,
which is kind of ironic considering they do basically the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's a little difficult because Facebook is it's much more entrenched, way more people. It's like embedded in everything. And because they have those little buttons on every web page, they can see every website you're going to. And I appreciate our audience, we'll bless them with the intelligence that maybe they run their Facebook in a container, or maybe they don't install the app on their phone and they only use the website. And, there are certain things you can do to mitigate this. But the problem is it's not you. It's one of your friends who did this. It's not necessarily you who pressed the button and took the survey. It's one of your family who are sat there staring out the window and a thing pops up and says, you look like Brad Pitt. And, what do I look like? Oh, well, I'll press this button and find out. And it's hoovered up all your data. And unfortunately, people are suckers for that kind of stuff because they're bored and they're staring at Facebook and scrolling it up and down constantly, looking for something new to enrich their life. And something pops up and tells them, you might look like Brad Pitt. They'll go, oh, great, and press a button and give all their data away. It's a sad indictment of our lives, really.
Yeah, and Christopher Wiley, the whistleblower from CA, said that on average, they collected 300 people's information based on every one person that they got to actually volunteer.
I mean, that's not surprising. I don't know how many, in inverted commas, friends I have on Facebook. Yeah, but 300 doesn't sound like an unreasonable number, despite the fact that in like real life, I probably only speak to 5 people on a daily basis. Oh,
I feel privileged to be speaking to you tonight, Alan.
Yeah. So,
okay.
Give us some good news, Mark.
Walked into that one, didn't I? No, bad news, I'm afraid, tonight. The eminent cosmologist and theoretical physicist Stephen Hawking has died at age 76.
That's certainly a lot older than the doctors initially thought he was going to last.
Well, that's
so he has that
true.
going for him.
Yes, yeah. A bit of a personal one for me because I when I was really little, I can't remember exactly how old I was, but there was a documentary, I think, on BBC Two, which he was presenting, and I remember just being transfixed, flicking through the channels and suddenly hearing this synthesized computer voice, like telling me all this stuff about space. And from that moment on, I just I loved all space-related, science fiction-related stuff. So yeah, it's quite sad that he's no longer with us. But there was a really interesting story that came out of this in the San Francisco Chronicle about an engineer called Eric Dorsey who worked on the Cortex 5010 synthesizer, which is the voice synthesizer which he used and has become so famous for. But when he first lost the power of speech and was given his computer to speak with, now it turned out that he'd actually been using exactly the same hardware synthesizer for 30 years, and as of last year, it was starting to fall apart a bit. Well, not fall apart literally, but starting to fail. And because it was made 30 years ago, nobody makes these anymore. But he's never been happy, or he had never been happy with any of the alternative voices that people had made for him in the intervening 30 years, which is why he'd always stuck with this. So when Eric found this out, he then sort of started a quest to kind of try and save his voice somehow, and he went down the route of emulation. So he tried to build a software emulator of the Cortex 5010 synthesizer.
Oh, so it's a physical, it's not a piece of software, it's a physical device.
This is a physical box which he carried around on his wheelchair, and his computer sent the text he wanted to say to this box, and it would generate the sound. It was quite interesting. Quite an interesting detail of the story was that there were 2 chips made by, I think one was made by NEC and one might have been made by Intel, and one of the chips, they wrote the emulator software for that chip from scratch. The other one they managed to take from an open source Nintendo emulator.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So they managed.
Wow.
Sorry.
No. I just I've often wondered, like, all these people who've worked meticulously to get all the like hidden instructions for some bizarre processor that's a clone of a Z80, or and get all the timings perfectly right in the software emulator. And people might dismiss that as, oh, well, why are you bothering to do that? All you're using it for is playing old arcade games. But if something like this comes along in the future, it makes it all worthwhile. And whoever it was, or whatever team, or whoever these developers were who made that emulator, should be thanked, because that is just fantastic.
Yeah. And the other cool detail about this was they never got to the point of actually installing the emulator software on the PC, which was his main computer that he used. But
a ThinkPad,
instead,
no less.
They had it running on a Raspberry Pi, which he'd been using since January in place of the hardware synthesizer.
Wow.
Yeah. So I thought that was quite cool.
That's pretty good. So out of the bad news comes some good. That's good. I like that.
Cool.
So the historical keeping it is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it also means that the voice is also now preserved forever, which is quite cool. Right, and I think that's all for the news, so let's move on to some community news. And here is our roundup of community news and events. Alan, what's going on in the community?
So first up, there's a post on the Ubuntu Insights that Firefox is now available as a snap. So if you want to try it out, you can snap install Firefox. If you're on a system that has snap capability, and if that's Ubuntu, then you have snap capability and you could just snap install Firefox.
I did that yesterday.
Yes. Did it work?
In fact, I'm using it right now, and it's Firefox.
Yes. Like, what more is there to say? It's a Firefox web browser. I've been quite vocal in how much I've used Chrome over the years, and when we started,
I hadn't noticed.
Yeah, I know, right? I've been keeping it under a bushel, but when we started working with Mozilla on this, as soon as they'd put a version in the store that worked, I was all over it, and I've been running it for about a month or so, every build to make sure, help as part of the testing to make sure it all works okay. And that's it. I'm now full-time Firefox. The only thing I've used Chromium for, also the snap, is Hangouts, because Hangouts don't work in Firefox. Now, I know Michael is a massive Firefox fanboy and can probably tell me how to get Hangouts working in Firefox, or he will just say, no, you can't.
You can, but it requires a Chromium thing. So you had to pull some code from Chromium. So you had to have both installed. So I don't know if the snap would be able to do that or anything, but like it's a reasonable solution to use Chromium for that. But I've been a fan of Firefox for when they were called Phoenix or something.
Oh, get you!
Wow,
before it was cool.
Yeah, exactly. Before people even heard of it, and I've been using it since then. And I've been just a massive fan for all the features, and that's both good and bad because I know a ton of stuff about Firefox and all the intricate ways it works and stuff like that. But then I also have to move all the stuff to the Snap, which I've been doing and I'm still doing because I want to use the Snap version, but there's so many things that I have in my over decade usage of Firefox.
Right.
Like I have at least 3,000 bookmarks or something.
Oh my gosh!
Wow!
So all I did was just copy the .mozilla folder into the Snap Firefox Common or whatever the directory is. There's a directory in your home directory called Snap Firefox Common, and I just copied .mozilla into there and then launched Firefox, and it just carried on as if nothing had happened.
I'll definitely try that, but I have a lot of custom stuff built into it too. So
the only while we're talking about Firefox, the only things other than Chromium, the only one other thing that I'm getting used to is the container feature.
I love containers.
Well,
I love them.
I do and I don't, because I really like the fact that in Chrome and Chromium I can separate profiles really, really easy, and the UI makes it really easy. But with containers, I have to click a special button in order to open a container as a personal account or a work account or shopping or whatever.
What are containers? I've not come across this.
Yay. Containers or container tabs or the multi-account container system, they changed it like 3 times. But it's a structure to have multiple profiles inside of Firefox, but you do it in a tab-based system so that you can have the same website loaded with different accounts all logged in at the same time with one window, all different tabs, and you can switch back and forth super easily. Now, by default, what you're saying is totally accurate. It has some issues with like the default functionality of containers is not quite there, but there are add-ons to improve the functionality so you can have shortcuts like Control Shift 1, 2, 3 for the different containers.
Oh, that would help. Yeah, that would certainly help, because I'm used to alt-tabbing to a different window and then just opening a new tab, and I know that tab will be my work because it's a separate window. But I'm actually quite getting used to having just one window with all the tabs. And the other thing I'll notice is the memory footprint of Firefox is definitely lower than Chrome, because I have like hundreds of tabs open in Chrome, but I had to have a tab suspender in Chrome to like suspend each tab because it was consuming CPU and RAM. In Firefox, I have the same number of tabs, but I don't need a suspender, and it works fine. So, yeah.
There's also a feature built into Firefox where it auto suspends things if you have them to save your tabs.
Sweet.
Yeah, if you save your tabs, if you make it so that when you close your browser, it keeps the tabs open. When you load them back up, it just leaves them there so that they won't load until you activate them.
Sweet.
So it saves a lot of space there too. But there's also a Alt-C shortcut to open like a new tab in the existing container. That saved me a lot of time.
Right. I think we've got to move on now and talk about some events. Otherwise, we're going to run out of time. Yep. So the first event we have coming up is FOSS Talk Live, which is happening at the same place it always happens, the Harrison Pub in London near King's Cross.
Yes.
And we are going to be doing a live show.
Yes, we are. It's a super venue. You should come along. You should get tickets. What's the website, Mark? It's
fosstalk.com, and it's happening on the 9th of June this year.
And it's a really nice, relaxed, if a little beery. The pub does really nice burgers, and so everyone like sneaks out between one show and the next. There's a whole bunch of people going to be there. Joe and the guys from Late Night Linux will be there. We will be there. Maybe the Linux Voice chaps will be there, and also Stuart Langridge and Dave Mega Slippers will be there, and I think Marius Quebec as well will be there. So it's going to be a fun-packed show, I think.
Indeed.
What's the next event then, Mark?
OggCamp is happening in Sheffield at Sheffield Hallam University, and you can go to oggcamp.org to find out more and get your tickets. But also, while you're on oggcamp.org, there's a new merchandise link at the top.
Ooh.
And if you click on that, if you couldn't make it to OggCamp 17 in Canterbury, but your OggCamp mug collection is wanting of an OggCamp 17
yeah, my wife will
mug,
love that.
then you can order a bundle including a sticker, a mug, and a T-shirt through the website for 15 of your English pounds.
Sweet. Is that a good way to support the event and throw a little bit of money if you can't come?
Yeah, all the money's going to go into future events.
Sweet.
So and get rid of the boxes and boxes of merchandise that are surrounding me right now.
Awesome. And finally, we have Linux Information Day, or Linux Infotag, which was sent to us by Anjan Ziegler. He said, he emailed to us, show@ubuntupodcast.org, saying, "You asked for an event suggestions in your last episode. I'm a co-organizer for the yearly Linux Information Day, or Linux Infotag, in Augsburg, Germany. It takes place on the 21st of April this year, and we have a one-day conference with talks about Linux, open source, and everything related to it. There are also booths of organizations like the FSF, Tuxedo Computers, and local dev shops. Call for participation is now closed. It looks like we'll have a full schedule this year, and everybody is welcome. Most of the program will be in German, but there will surely be more German listeners in your audience like me, and English-speaking people are also welcome, of course." He adds, anyway, delightful to hear that your show is back for another season. I will go now and smash that like button. Martin will be happy to hear that. Brilliant.
Cool. And I guess we'll link to more about Linux Infotag in the show notes.
Yep.
Great. That's all from the community this week.
If you're in the US, you can give us a hand by leaving us a rating on Google Play Podcasts to tell others what you think of the Ubuntu podcast.
Yay, we made it.
Yeah, that's all for episode 3. Ooh.
Thank you for joining us, Michael.
Yes. Oh, thanks for having me.
Will you be sticking
really
around to join us next week?
I can absolutely guarantee I will.
Oh, brilliant.
Yes.
People are very good to us like that.
Yeah, they're very kind to come back week after week. Yeah. So I think next week we should talk a bit about the stuff you've been doing around KDE. I think maybe a look to some of the future stuff that's happening in KDE. What do you think?
Oh yeah, it sounds good. There's a lot of great stuff going on.
This is quickly becoming the Ubuntu KDE podcast.
Or do you mean the Kubuntu podcast? No, because there is.
No, there was a Kubuntu
there
podcast.
Still is.
Wasn't there?
Infrequent
still is.
episodes, but
yeah. Let's not tread on their toes.
Yeah, no. Awesome.
But KDE is awesome, so we should definitely talk about that.
Yeah.
Yes, and we'll also have some command line love.
Awesome. We'll see you next week then.
Yep. I'm not going to do it.
You are. Are you sure you're not?
Go on then, just for you, Alan. Bye.
Martin will be rolling his airline seat.